Okay. So, hello. Welcome to the London Buddhist Center. My name is Danayutta. Yeah, that's good. I'm really glad that you can all hear me and the text working all right. Just to say that I'm here with Ariane, who's a tech team for today. And yeah, really looking forward to exploring some yoga and meditation and mindfulness with all of you. How many people do we have, Ariane? Okay, great. Yeah, so just to say, we've got a few minutes before the class starts. If you would like to get ready for the class, it's quite helpful, I think, just to have a few props for today. So you'll need a yoga belt, or if you don't have a yoga belt, a scarf that doesn't stretch too much would also work, or failing that, a long sleeve t-shirt. Basically, we'll be doing some balancing postures, where I think it'd be really quite helpful just to have a yoga belt or a scarf, something that you can sort of hold on to your foot with. So yeah, do get one if you haven't already. Still a few more minutes before we start the class. Yeah. And also do say hello, and it'd be nice for me to know who we're practicing with today. Yeah, so do say hello in the chat box. Yeah. Good. So I don't know if anyone said anything. Okay. So another thing I'd like to say is also with these yoga classes, particularly on YouTube, one of the things that I really miss about, I don't know, I suppose like live yoga teaching is the ability to have a bit more of a conversation. So often I imagine all of you doing things perfectly, wonderfully, having all your arms and feet and everything in alignment. But also sometimes it's quite nice for me if people ask questions. So if you do have a yoga question or a question about what we've been teaching on our YouTube classes, it would just be really nice to know. Yeah, so don't feel shy. You can always ask questions in the chat box. We always sort of say this, we know this cognitively, but somehow it's quite hard to know in your heart that there are no silly questions. In a way, sometimes the more basic kind of questions can really illuminate a lot, yeah? So do say hello in the chat box, and don't be shy to ask questions. Yeah.
Hello from Anna Marbury.
Ah.
Charlotte.
Hello. Hello.
Sophie Holdstop from Harringay.
Oh, nice. Hi, Sophie. Yeah, so just to let you know that we will be using a yoga belt as a prop today. So do get yourself a belt if you have one, or if you don't have one, a scarf or a long sleeve t-shirt would work just as well. Yeah, so you will need something that you can hold your foot with. Also, I think it is quite helpful actually to sit a little bit raised, and we will be doing a little bit of meditation just to start and just to finish. So I often get people to sit on a couple of yoga blocks, even if they can sit perfectly in lotus. It's really helpful just to have a little bit of height underneath your sit bones when you're sitting in meditation. It just gets your pelvis into the right shape. Yeah. So we'll be starting in a couple of minutes. Do say hello, and be nice to know who we're practicing with today. And yeah, it's nice to be here back at the London Buddhist Center. Okay. Good. Yeah, so just to let you know, if you've just joined us, my name's Danayutta, and I'm here with Ariane in the room, and Ariane's moderating the comments and doing all the technical stuff, like making sure that my mic's working and things like that. So it's 12 o'clock, and let's make a start. So welcome all of you. And just to say again, you might need a yoga belt or a scarf for the class today, and maybe a couple of thick books or some yoga blocks to sit on. So today, what I'm going to be talking about at the start of the class, and the theme for the yoga session, the meditation session, is deepening or building mindfulness. And I thought I'd just sort of say a few things about mindfulness before we sort of explore it in our experience. In a way, the word mindfulness, we only really have one word for it in English, or maybe we have a few words: mindfulness, awareness. But actually, in the Buddhist tradition, there are a lot of Pali words, a lot of Sanskrit words that get translated into this one word, mindfulness. So it's a little bit like Eskimos and snow, like Eskimos like see a lot of snow, so they have lots and lots of words for different kinds of snow. Buddhists explore the mind, really, really look at the mind in meditation and out of meditation. So there are lots and lots of words for mindfulness, lots of I suppose there are different flavors of mindfulness, and so lots and lots of different words. And usually, when we talk about mindfulness in a secular way, a lay way, often we're talking about a particular kind of mindfulness, which is sati, which is kind of basic recollection, knowing what you're doing as you're doing it. But that's not the only kind of mindfulness. There are lots and lots of different kinds of mindfulness. Probably, I can probably rattle off about 6 or 7 different kinds. But I wanted to talk specifically about 2 kinds of mindfulness. One is sampajana, and it's usually translated technically as continuity of purpose. So it's a kind of mindfulness that keeps the goal and the vision and your motivation, your inspiration in mind as you go through your day. You kind of you're not distracted from the deepest meaning of your life. So that's one particular area of mindfulness that I thought I'd explore, because I think that with something like yoga, it's very, very easy to have several goals, I suppose. Sometimes, we come to yoga because we would like longer hamstrings. We want to be able to touch our toes. Some of us will come to yoga because we want to have like a nicer bottom, or I don't know, like sort of like muscly arms or whatever it is. But that's probably only sort of one layer of your motivation. Probably you will have a sense, if you've done any yoga before, that actually the kind of awareness, the kind of depth that you can get to with yoga practice transforms your mind. I know for myself that even though I don't think about it very often, yoga is something that keeps my mind sort of clean. The days where I don't practice yoga, the sort of weeks I don't practice yoga, it's as if I haven't brushed my teeth. It's sort of like mental teeth, if you like. So do keep your inspiration for yoga in mind. Yeah? It's very, very important. And the thing that I think is most important is this thing of transforming and cultivating your mind, cultivating the sort of more positive aspects of your mind. And you can really, really do that through yoga practice. The other aspect of mindfulness that I thought I'd just say is what we would call Dhammavichaya. So Dhammavichaya, and what that means is investigation of mental states. I thought I'd bring that to mind because I think often with yoga, we sort of think of it as like a physical practice, but actually I think the kind of yoga that we teach here at the London Buddhist Center is very, very much more like a moving meditation. And you can really get right up close to your mind, right up close to the workings of your minds, as well as the content of your mind. So with yoga practice, it's a very, very good container to really investigate what is happening, what is going on. So I feel like this has been the main sort of thrust of practice through my yoga life. And I'll just give you one little example, and then we'll go into some meditation. So when I was a fairly, I don't know, sort of like decent, as a decent time, I had been practicing yoga, and my yoga teacher was helping me into quite a complicated posture. And what it was is I was lying on my back. It's called Yoga Nidrasana, and it means something like, the name means something like the position of yogic sleep. And you're on your back, and you've got both feet behind your head, and your hands are tied behind, you're sort of like linked behind your back. So it's quite a sort of tight, complicated posture. And my yoga teacher was kneeling next to me, and she was moving my feet apart behind my head, trying to like cross my feet even deeper. And apparently, she told me I had made a face. I scrunched up my face. And she said, "Oh, was that too painful? What, like, did I take you too deep into the posture?" And I just burst out laughing because really, as she was doing that, I was thinking about my ex-boyfriend and I was making a face because of my ex-boyfriend. So, um, and then when she told me that, I realized that most of my practice, I had just been thinking about him and thinking about the end of our relationship. So I think just doing that, her being taught yoga, it sort of brought me like a bit closer to what was actually happening for me. And then I realized I didn't have to like spend all my yoga practice trying to work out the end of the relationship. Okay, so you'll probably have your own stories about depth and yoga. What I'd like us to do is start off with a little meditation. And what we'll do in the meditation is just to recollect our inspiration and our motivation for practice, just to sort of set the scene for ourselves today. So get into meditation posture if you haven't already. I think it's quite good to sit up. We will only be doing this for about 3 or 4 minutes. See if you can sit upright, perhaps with your legs crossed, or if that's a little bit too much, you can have your feet flat on the floor like this, with your hands around your shins. And then close your eyes. See if you can sit up a little bit taller. Have a sense of your whole body. And perhaps think back, if you can remember, to your first yoga class. Perhaps recollecting what brought you to that class, what you were looking for, what you hoped to gain. And then just thinking about today, here, right now. Again, the sense of what you want out of this particular practice. Just keeping that in mind. Okay. When you're ready, you might just want to open your eyes. Perhaps interlace your fingers, press your palms outwards, tuck your head in. Start with a little spine stretch, breathing a little bit more space into your upper back, space between your shoulder blades. Really take your attention there, imagining your shoulder blades moving apart as you breathe in, and then dropping down your back as you breathe out. So breathing in, shoulder blades moving apart. Breathing out, letting them drop down your spine. One more breath here. Inhale. And exhale. Good. On your next inhale, reach your arms up, sit up tall. Breathe out, take a little stretch to the side. Inhale, come back to center. Breathing out, stretch the other way. And inhale, come back to center. Let's come into a twist now. So one hand on the opposite knee, turn round to face the back of the room. See if you can be nice and long in the spine. Stack your shoulders over your hips. There's a slight tendency for most people to want to lean back here, so just make sure that your shoulders are squarely above your hips and you're sitting up tall, not hunched over, particularly in the upper and the lower back. We'll take one more breath, breathing in, letting the rib cage spread. Breathing out. And then let's twist the other way. So, just twisting around the other way, making sure that your hand is on the opposite knee. Breathing in, sitting up tall. Shoulders over your hips. Breathing out. Making sure that your rib cage is actually moving, that you're actually breathing. One more breath here. Okay, inhale forward and release. Come onto your hands and your knees. We're going to do a little bit of cat-cow. Just some basic stretches. So one of the things about mindfulness and yoga is that we often find out how we are through the physical body. As you do move through cat-cow, so you exhale to lift the spine, and you inhale to drop the belly, lift the tailbone, lift the chin. As you breathe and move, sometimes what you can feel is sort of how open the body is or how tight the body is. So particularly doing something like cat-cow where you're continuously moving and you're moving quite a big expanse of the body, so the whole of the spine and the whole of the back and the front of the torso, where your hips, your neck, your shoulders are involved. Just seeing which bits feel tight, constricted, which bits feel smooth and open. And this might give you a clue as to how you are today. The sense of the energy levels that you're experiencing. We'll just take another breath like this. So you really exhale, tuck your head in, tuck the tailbone in, and then you really inhale, drop the belly, look up towards the ceiling or towards the sky. And then coming back to a more neutral spine, tuck your toes under, lift your hips upwards, backwards, coming into downward dog. So spreading your fingers, spreading your toes, tuck your head in. Might be the first downward dog of the day, so don't worry too much about your hamstrings for now. See if you can have a sense of your fingers being spread. Roll your shoulders outwards, away from your ears, tuck your head in. Look towards your own belly button. Take another breath here. And then bring your knees down. Walk your hands forward. It's going to come into a different kind of shoulder stretch. Walking your hands forwards, keeping your hips over your knees. Drop your breastbone towards the ground and your forehead towards the ground, or if you can, your chin towards the ground. Remember to breathe. And then when you're ready, come back up onto all fours. Just come back into downward dog. So spreading your fingers, tucking your toes under. Just see what downward dog is like now that you've done that little shoulder stretch. Remember with downward dog, we are trying to roll our shoulders away from the ears. And see if you can do that. Breathing. just take another breath here. Okay, come back down on your knees. Just want to say something about downward dog, and then we'll just do that again. So very often with downward dog, I don't say too much about the feet and the legs. But I thought I would say something about your feet and your legs today, and particularly how you place your feet. So when you place your feet in downward dog, you want your feet to be as parallel as possible. And then often what can happen is that we slightly collapse onto the instep. Even those of us who don't have flat insteps, we tend to sort of collapse our feet inwards. So when you come into downward dog, see if you can notice that you're still lifting your instep. And it's not that your feet are tense, but your feet are engaged, yeah? So we'll just have another go at downward dog again. Spreading your fingers, knees underneath your hips, tuck your toes under, and just come into downward dog. So it doesn't really matter if you can get your heels on the ground or not, but see if you can notice what you're doing with your feet. So spread your toes, and just notice whether you're collapsed on the instep and your ankles are rolling in, or if you can just slightly engage your feet and roll your ankles so that your ankles are sort of centered. You're neither rolling outwards and onto the outside edge of your feet or collapsing your instep into the ground. Just paying a little bit of attention to your feet. Okay, and then when you're ready, bring your right foot forwards. Let's come into Warrior One. So, reaching both arms up. So in Warrior One, lift the chest, look up between your hands. And once we stay in Warrior One's a very sort of, it's probably a posture that most of us do quite a lot. Just really notice what it feels like in Warrior One. And then noticing where your mind tends to drift off to, if you're not particularly concentrated, just noticing what have you been doing. Have you been answering your emails? Have you been arguing with your housemate or your partner or your boss? Have you been planning who you might meet up with as the lockdown eases? Okay, and then let's coming into Warrior Two. So, hands at shoulder level, palms facing down. See if you can be as upright as possible. So, stacking your shoulders over your hips, trying not to lean forwards, and also drawing your rib cage together. So, if we're a little bit weak in the core, we tend to let the rib cage stick out. So, see if you can just draw your rib cage together. Be really upright, and then look along your right arm. So, breathing in Warrior Two. Noticing what Warrior Two feels like from the inside. Good. And then let's come into Parsvakonasana. So bend your right knee quite a lot. Left arm comes up and over. So just a couple of little variations that you can do in Parsvakonasana. If you want to build a little bit more flexibility, you can take your feet a little bit further apart and bring your right hand down towards the ground. If your right hand doesn't quite reach the ground at the moment, you might want to pop yourselves up with a block and work towards it slowly. That's one thing that you can do. The other thing that you can do is starting again from your elbow on your knee. If you want to build strength rather than flexibility, you can just reach the bottom arm over to the side. To do that, you'll need to engage your core a little bit more. It is hard. It's hard work. Let's build strength in your right thigh. And then you can come all the way up. Want us to go back to Warrior One position and give ourselves a little stretch of the psoas. So bend your right knee again. So just make sure that you're facing your right foot and that your hips are as square as possible. Maybe even put your hands onto your hips and square your hips towards your right foot. So you're drawing your left hip towards your right knee. Now, reach your left arm up and see if you can just stretch. Do a sideways stretch away from your left hip. Keep drawing the left hip forwards as you stretch over to the side. Should get a long psoas stretch, so from your left rib cage down towards your left knee. So down the side of the body, down the front of the body. Let's take one more breath here. And then bring your left hand onto your right knee and just come into a little twist. Okay. Probably for most of us, this is also a little bit of a balance. Okay, and then let's just turn all the way back around. So all the way around to the other side. Left foot forwards now. Let's come into warrior one. Just repeat on the other side. So left foot forwards, warrior one. Reaching both arms up, lift the chest, look up between your hands. So again, just noticing what warrior one feels like from the inside. And also what you've been thinking about. What sort of mental state are you in? What's the flavor of the mind? Okay, and then let's come into warrior two. So hips and shoulders stacked over each other. Have a little look at your rib cage. Just make sure the rib cage isn't sticking out. And then look along your left arm. So coming into warrior two, most of this time we want to lift the shoulders up towards the ears. So see if you can just make sure that the shoulders are nice and down. The other thing that can help the shoulders a little bit is just giving your elbows a little tiny little micro bend. Yeah. We'll just take another breath here, and then we can come into Parsvakonasana. So bend your left knee, right arm comes up and over. And again, two variations for you. You can always stay here in Parsvakonasana. Take your feet a little bit further apart and bring your left hand down towards the ground. Or if you want to, releasing your left arm and just a sideways bend. So we'll just stay here for a few more moments, a few more breaths, remembering what it is that you're trying to cultivate. Good. Remember to breathe. And just take one more breath here. Well done. And then come all the way up. Good. So coming back to your left knee, so you're squaring your hips towards your left knee. Again, you might just find it helpful to bring your hands to your hips and sort of manually draw yourselves round. Reach your right arm up. Keep drawing your right hip forwards and just bend towards the left. So a long stretch down the left side of the body, the right side of the body, from the rib cage down your thigh, down the hip. And keep drawing the left hip forwards as you come into the sideways bend. If your right hip forwards. If your right hip is lagging behind, you won't feel very much of the stretch in the hip. Okay, and then you can bring your right hand to your left knee. Just draw yourselves into a twist as far as you can, remembering to breathe. So this is quite an unusual twist because it's a bit of a back-bending twist. It's quite good to do back-bending twists once in a while. Okay, when you're ready, let's just all come back to downward dog. So bring your hands down to the floor and just take a step back to downward dog. So probably your hips feel quite different from the last time you were in downward dog. So let's just come back to alignment of the hands. Spread your fingers, roll your shoulders out. And then alignment of the feet. So spreading your toes, just making sure that you're neither collapsing the instep or rolling onto the outsides of your feet. So engage your feet. Position your ankles squarely over your heels. And when you're ready, walk your feet towards your hands and stand all the way up. Okay, so just in case you joined us late, you will need a belt for this. Or if a belt isn't something that you have to hand. Maybe use a scarf or a long sleeve t-shirt. And see if you can just bring the belt around the ball of your right foot and lift the right foot up. Okay. So as you get a little bit more familiar with these postures, it's quite good to have quite a short belt. So probably you'll start off with a long belt or a long scarf. And then as you get a little bit more familiar, see if you can have as short a belt as possible while still keeping your legs straight. One of the reasons to have a short belt is that if you have too long a belt, the tendency is to leave your shoulders behind. So if I turn to the side, you sort of tend to leave your shoulders behind and you use the weight of your shoulders to balance. But really what you want is for your shoulders to be as much as possible over your hips. So you're still using the core, not leaning back. And just take another breath here. And then you can let your right leg go. Well done. And then let's try the other side. Getting a little bit tangled up with my mic here. So belt around the ball of your left foot, or scarf around the ball of your left foot, and just lift the left leg up. So one of the other sort of advantages of using a belt is that you can really straighten your leg. Sometimes I get people to hold their big toe with their fingers. But the hard thing about that is you might not be able to straighten your legs. So see if you can have as straight a leg as possible. Good. A short belt. And pressing your heel outwards. Well done. And just a couple more breaths here. Remembering to breathe. See if you can smile. Okay. Really, really good. So put your belt to one side. Just come into a little forward bend. Hold on to your elbows. You can have your feet a little bit apart. Drop your head. Just release your lower back. So if you have been leaning back, probably you'll get a little bit of pinching in the lower back. Just stretch your back out. Okay, and then come all the way up. And we'll just develop that a little bit. So come back to your belt. This time what we're going to do is we're going to take the leg out to the side. So one of the hard things about learning balances on YouTube is that it's if you keep looking at the person who's teaching, often you'll fall over when they start to move. So I really recommend looking at a spot in front of you that won't move, and then see if you can pick your right foot up. But this time, only use your right arm to hold onto the belt or to the scarf. Yeah, the left hand comes onto your waist. Again, stand up tall, so try not to lean back. That's really, really important because we're going to start to take the leg out to the side. Good. Really good. So if you just wobbled and fallen over, don't worry. Just try it again. So lift the leg up and take the leg out to the side. Okay, that's great. And then we'll just try the other side. So left leg. So again, as you set yourselves up in the first position, try to keep your shoulders over your hips. It will help if you engage the core. Bring your right hand to your right waist. Hold the left leg in the left hand with the left hand. And then let's just take the leg out to the side. Good. Really, really good. So feeling into your feet, standing up tall, remembering to breathe. Smile if you can. Okay, very good. Bring your leg back forwards and release. Let's do one little vinyasa to come to the ground. So bring your feet together. You can put the belt to one side. Feet together, one top edge of your mat. Breathe in, reach your arms up. Let's just take a couple of breaths here. So inhale and exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Good. Bring your hands all the way down, folding into a forward bend. Drop your head. And then on your next inhale, lift the chest, straighten the back as much as you can. Just take a couple of breaths here. As you breathe in, lengthen the spine. As you breathe out, lengthen the spine. One more breath. Okay, stepping back into Chaturanga. Bend your elbows. Don't worry, we won't hold Chaturanga. Inhale into upward dog. But we will hold upward dog, so release your toes behind you. See if you can keep your shoulders away from your ears. So try not to sink your neck into your upper back. So really long line in the neck and shoulders. Remember to breathe. Okay, let's come into downward dog. Good. So again, just checking your fingers, spreading your fingers, checking your feet, alignment of the feet. So feet hip distance apart, either collapsing the instep or rolling outwards. Okay, coming back down onto your knees. So last week when we were doing this class, I was teaching those little balances and also little sideways balances. Just going to keep exploring that a little bit more. So we're going to come into side plank. So lie on your side. I'm lying with my left elbow on the floor underneath my left shoulder and your legs out. And you're trying to align yourself so that most of your body is in one straight line. Now make sure that your elbow's definitely under your shoulder. In a way, it's slightly better to have your elbow closer to your waist than too far away, yeah? It's definitely underneath your shoulder. And then engage the belly and lift your hips off the floor. So you might need to bring your top foot forwards to balance. But if you can find your balance, stack one foot on top of the other, and then you can lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. Good. Keep lifting your hips. That's the main thing. Don't worry too much about where your arms are. Good. And then come all the way down. So we're going to do that again with the option to vary it with your hand underneath your shoulders. So contraindications, if you've got wrist problems, you probably want to stay with your elbow on the ground. But otherwise, same thing here. You can start off with your right foot in front of your right knee like this, and then lift your hips off the floor. Now, be quite good if you can get both feet flat on the floor, so particularly your left foot. See if you can get your left foot flat on the floor. Press the big toe into the ground. So 2 things you can do here. You can reach your right arm up. Or if you want a little bit of a challenge, if you're really, really steady here, you can bring your right hand to your right big toe and start to lift your right foot up towards the ceiling. It is a little bit of a challenge, but if you've been practicing for a long while, it might not be beyond you. Okay. And then coming all the way down. Really good. Let's just try it on the other side. So with these postures, you always have to work a little bit by little bit. So don't worry if all you're doing is lifting your hips up just a few inches on your elbow. So remember, as you do this, you definitely want to have your elbow underneath your shoulder, so not too far out. That's quite difficult. A little bit closer to the waist is probably a little bit easier. You can always step your left foot forwards, and then only if you're steady, reach your arm up towards the ceiling. So keep lifting the hips. That's the main thing. And I think for most people, what this posture does is that it encourages a little bit more of core stability. So this lifting of the hips just strengthens the muscles in the core. Okay, coming all the way down. So you can do that again, or you can bring your right hand down to the ground. This time, definitely have your left foot forwards of your knee. And as you come into the side plank, see if you can bring your right big toe onto the ground. Yeah. Good. You can reach your arm up here if you're steady. Good. Or you can catch hold of your left big toe and see if you can just lift your left foot up towards the ceiling. Now, these are straight leg postures, particularly your bottom leg. So see if you can have a feeling of at least straightening the bottom leg even if it's not completely straight. You want a feeling of straightening. Okay, really, really good. Come back down onto your hands and knees. Maybe come into child's pose. Feet together, knees apart. Reach your arms forwards. Drop your forehead down towards the ground. So, a little bit of a moment of Dhammavichaya. Just notice what's happening for you now. One of the things about trying more challenging postures is that we can tell ourselves all sorts of things about it. It's too hard, she's mad, I'm terrible, maybe my next lifetime, and so on and so on. Just noticing what's happening now. Dropping your breastbone down towards the ground, reaching your hands forwards. Making sure that you're sitting back onto your heels as much as you can. And then just coming back onto your knees. Let's do a little bit of a twist. So right hand between your left hand and your left knee. Just making sure that your hips stay over your knees so you're not leaning back too far. Looking up towards the ceiling if you can. Just making sure that your left shoulder is lifting up towards the ceiling. Come back into a sense of your spine and your hips. One thing about this twist is that your shoulders are fixed, so which is quite unusual for a twist. At least one shoulder's fixed anyway. So you can just sort of wriggle your hips around and see if you can find the right twist for you today. So you're either swaying both hips from side to side, or sometimes you can just move your hips towards your head a little bit. One hip anyway. Okay, well, let's turn around the other way. So again, setting the posture up well. For most of us, that just means the shoulders are not too close to the knees and your hips are above your knees. Once you're in position, just noticing how you can move your hips and just seeing what the right twist is today. Either moving the hips from side to side or just bringing your left hip forwards and back. Remembering to breathe into the twist. Okay. And then coming all the way up. So find yourselves onto your back. Hug your knees into the chest. Maybe you want to have one hand on each knee. Just circle the knees away from each other and then all the way back together. So we're coming towards the end of the class. So you might want to start making longer, bigger, slower movements. And then we're going to come into Ananda Balasana, happy baby posture. So knees moving apart, catching hold of your ankles or catching hold of the outsides of your feet. Lifting your feet up towards the ceiling. Moving your feet away from each other, keeping your knees bent. And then you may want to continue moving a little, so rocking from side to side. And just seeing what the posture's like for you, where the stretch is. Good. One of the things that I really notice, because I've got quite open hips, so in a way Ananda Balasana doesn't really do very much for me. But I do really enjoy the feeling of just rolling across the facets of my spine. Just rolling from one side of the spine to the other. I just really, really like that feeling. And then bringing your feet together, Holding your feet together, bending your knees quite a lot, and then just moving your knees away from your shoulders. Different kind of hip stretch. Relaxing your shoulders down and back. So not allowing your shoulders to rise up away from the ground. And then when you're ready, you can bring your knees back together, reach your arms back, stretch your legs out in front of you. Breathe in, take a big stretch. Breathe out and relax. Just once more, breathe in, big stretch. Reach with your fingers, point your toes. And breathe out. Bring your hands down by your sides. Let your feet flop apart. Palms facing the ceiling. Just a couple of minutes of Shavasana. So, relaxing your shoulders away from the front of the body. Allowing your face to soften. Eyeballs moving towards the ground, ears moving towards the ground. It's almost like your brain too moves towards the ground. Relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your fingers. Letting your feet flop apart. Letting the front of the body go really soft and tender. Nothing to defend. No need to protect. We'll just spend a couple more moments here. And then wriggle your fingers, wriggle your toes, maybe open your eyes. And let your eyes close again. Roll over onto your side. Come to sitting. So we'll just finish with a couple of minutes of just recollecting our intention. So remember that mindfulness is not just about feeling how you are or feeling how things are. It's much more than that. There is continuity of purpose, keeping the goal in mind. So what did you set out to do today? What mental state were you hoping to transform? What were the stories that you were telling yourselves? Did you really investigate them? And what did you manage to let go of? Okay, so when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So it's 12:45 now. It's the end of our class. Very, very lovely to have all of you. Just to say that we run all our classes here at the London Buddhist Center for free. Most of them anyway, unless we have to book people onto a course. So it's really, really important for us to run a sort of economy of abundance and generosity. What we really, really hope by doing that is that we all participate in a sense of community where everyone can benefit and we feel like we're contributing to it. So one of the really important ways of contributing to a community is through money. So if you can make a standing order, if you can give us a one-off donation, I just really, really encourage you to do that. In fact, even if you have a standing order to us, why don't you just give us a one-off donation today? A class like this would normally cost about, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 pounds. So maybe just like if you're feeling moved to, contribute to the London Buddhist Center. Anyway, it's been really, really lovely to have all of you and hopefully practice with you next Wednesday. Bye.